We're just waiting for
Hello.
the attendees to join. Welcome, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Just going to give it maybe 2 minutes and then we will kick off as the attendees just come in. I hope everyone got your brandy packs. I know they didn't come with Coke. That was intentional. We're going to try it today without Coke. Not the way I normally drink brandy, but...
Sorry.
Welcome, welcome for those just joining. And we're just going to wait for a minute or two and then we'll kick off.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Vic.
Well, and you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Good to have you joining us.
Always nice.
Right, well, 1 minute past. We'll probably just give it 1 more minute and then we will kick off to make sure we run on time. If you do have your brandy packs, just keep them close at hand. The first hour will be the Prezzo and Q&A session, and then we will jump into some brandy tasting. How are we on numbers there, Mel?
We're at 31, so.
Right. Give it another couple of seconds and then we will kick off. Right. 2 minutes past, so I think it is time to jump in and welcome everyone. Good to have you joining us today. We are doing a Brandy Bytes event focusing on AI and Microsoft Azure in particular. For anyone who doesn't know me in the room, my name is Brian Timperley. I'm the Chief Executive at Teredo, and I'm joined today by our partners Cloudmania, and namely Inayeth Govender. He is the business group lead for Azure and AI. A little bit later, we're going to have the infamous Sean Gunn join us from Whiskey Rebellion. And he'll be taking us through the world of brandy without Coca-Cola, which is going to be new to certainly me. Today's session really focuses around utilizing the suite of tools that Azure offers for custom-built AIs in your business. So we're going to be focusing on the stuff that isn't as generic as Copilots and you know the other chatbots. We're going to be showcasing being able to use your data and your requirements. We'll touch on the vast range of tools that are available in the Azure stack around artificial intelligence, the data set compatibility, along with the considerable security and compliance suites, and then detail around the return on investment that businesses can typically expect in this environment. Teredo, together with Cloudmania, are offering all businesses in attendance today a $500 credit for testing the capabilities that we'll be showcasing for you today. So if that is something that you guys would like to take advantage of, please reach out to your account manager or Kumar and Gopal, our sales manager. They'll assist you with processing the enablement of that credit for you guys to start testing. So please make a note of any questions that you have during the session. I think in the last 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to jump into a Q&A at the end, and then we'll have plenty of time to get through all of that. So just make a note during the course of the session. And without further ado, I will hand over to Inayeth. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. Pleased to meet you all. It's a pleasure speaking at one of the Teredo events. And yeah, like Brian said, I'm going to take you through to the world of AI today. We're going to unpack some challenges. We're going to unpack some pros, some cons, and the way that you can actually do this in a safe way and make sure that you're not exposing your data or your infrastructure or anything to the public or the internet. Hope you enjoyed the session, and please do make it interactive. Put your hand up if you've got some questions. Melissa, Brian is watching the chat, so we're gonna take your questions and answer them as best as possible as well. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen, so just give me a second. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen. Melissa, just let me know if all's good.
All good.
Okay, cool, perfect. So I think what I'd like to do initially is just speak about foundation models, just in terms of what they're doing currently now we're all in this era. We all feel this ChatGPT wave since for the last 2 years. We're all looking at different ways or different waves of AI and how it's affecting our businesses. Copilots from Microsoft perspective, NVIDIA launched a new AI, which is open source yesterday, and a whole lot of things are changing in our environment, right? So it brings a way that we can work differently and how we can actually become more effective or not effective. That's the question that we're asking ourselves. Is AI really going to help us or not? And it's currently a debate, right? So let's talk about some stats that we're looking at in terms of just GitHub Copilot for just OpenAI's Codex, which is helping and assisting, developers in the developer community speed up the coding, looking at more efficiencies, actually addressing and helping debugging certain applications and coding as well. So if you look at the stats, you can see like it's making coding and reviewing of code 15% faster, right? 84% of the surveys that Microsoft put out from a research, they felt more confident in their code quality. So what this tells us is that the AI, which is becoming a co-pilot to you and not replacing the developer in any way, but becoming more of an assistant and a guide in terms of the languages. You can't, if you're developing, lots of different programs and you're using different types of languages, you're obviously jumping between different coding syntaxes. And that's one of the easiest errors that can happen from a human coding perspective as well. Okay. So let's just jump into a little bit more now. So we understand that, foundation models are existing. There's large language model, there's small, models that you can use and utilize. And how is all of this coming and how is it actually, manifesting itself, right? So how do we manage such intensive and demand around the large language models, right? You can see that in a data science world, right? And being a data scientist myself and studying this for many years and working on deploying on hundreds of AI solutions, I can tell you that these are 4 main pillars that you will come or cross when you're dealing with large language models, and they are mostly barriers that we need to overcome. Firstly, there's the managing of the infrastructure perspective. Then there's the training and the fine-tuning of your large language models or even small models. And there's also finding and also comparing models from different vast sets. You've got thousands of models that are there. Thousands of them are open source. Some of them are governed. Some of them are protected. There's different ways. And then also, the question comes about is how do we use this AI responsibly? And when it comes to the responsible, just an example, if you deploy an AI bot, there's a legal ramification around it and there's a risk around it. When it comes to this risk and when you're looking at this risk itself, you need to consider how this is going to affect your organization from your policies, procedures, your compliance, your governance that you have within your organization as well. So I am going to go a little bit fast on a few slides. So please do put your hand up or unmute yourself and then just ask any questions that you do have. So let's then talk about, an introductory model into what AI in Azure looks like. So in Azure, we've got something which is called the model catalog. And model choices do matter in terms of when you're creating your AI bots, there's different types of models that you can use. And I'll give you the famous one. So you have a text model that can do chat completion. And what that actually means is that when you're chatting to ChatGPT as an example, or Copilot as an example, you are prompting it with natural language and you're typing in text and it's returning text back. Now you have different models that you can type in text and it can return a video back to you. Or you type in text and it can return sort of a voice prompt back to you as well. As models start becoming more intelligent and as the foundation models start expanding more, we start getting more compute power behind them, and we start getting more algorithms that are being developed by data scientists and scientists around the world, your model selection is really going to matter. Because when you are creating this bot now, you need to be selective on how you deploy this bot. Now, sometimes it's a bot that I'm referring to. Maybe it's actually an intelligent search engine that you're creating for your organization that sits on your intranet. Maybe it's an application that's loaded onto your mobile phone and you take a picture of it and it translates the picture into a database or converts it into a database. So therefore, choosing the right model is the first step that you need to actually do. So Azure AI model catalog actually makes this easy for you because it's a vast array of catalogs and models, and you can understand exactly what each model does because there's a little summary there, and also there's some information and documentation around how the model actually works. Now you can switch into choosing a model that's deployed in Azure AI Studio, which we're going to look at in a few minutes, or you can choose to use an Azure AI model inference, which is using an API call. And many developers like to do this. You have your Visual Studio or your VS Code, and from that you can actually call the API, just like how you can call ChatGPT APIs or any other applications that are APIs. You have a secret code that you get from Azure, and you can actually call the API within your application itself. So that means you have an embedded bot process or bot framework that you can deploy in your existing application. Okay, and then you can also look at building generative AI apps. And building a generative AI app is using a low-code development application or a playground application within Azure, where you can actually select a type of GPT model, deploy that model, which is already pre-trained and it already has foundation learning in it, and you can fine-tune it with your own data. And that's an example and a demo that we're going to look at today. Okay, then there's some enterprise readiness in the catalog as well, and we'll cover some of that a little later, and I'll show you exactly how that works. And then there's also lots of customer success stories that Liquid and Cloudmania have done. Terito is working on lots of projects around it as well. Sorry, is there a question? Sorry, I can't see if there's a question, so please do ask it. No problem. So let's go into the first pillar itself that we spoke about. Why does model choice matter in the real world? In a playground and a simulated environment, it really doesn't matter, because if I'm deploying AI in a dev environment, I'm not exposing it to real world examples. I don't have to worry about user access. I don't have to worry about optimizing the model. If I'm running it locally on my machine, or I'm running it on a virtual machine, or wherever I'm running it, it really doesn't matter because it's containerized in that environment. So when you're exposing your model to real world scenarios, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions, right? Can AI solve my use case? That's the very first question that you need to ask it, right? Then, you need to look at what is the best model for my use case, and can I scale for real world workloads? And let's unpack those a little bit more. So when you're obviously developing and you're looking at AI for the first time, you go into a prototype phase. So your thinking is now, can AI solve it? You're not really sure whether this AI is able to do that or not. So you're going into a prototype phase where you're thinking about, okay, let's define the use case that AI might be able to solve. Let's say, for example, you have a customer service desk and you're getting a whole lot of calls that's coming through the customer service desk or emails, and you would like to create some sort of segmentation or filterization and build some intelligence on top of that, where your agents are able to answer, with first call resolution, or maybe in fact, what they could do is actually have an encyclopedia or Wikipedia that has all your organization information on their fingertips, and with a simple search, they could get that information. Now, yes, there might be intranet, there might be SharePoint, OneDrive, and a whole lot of documentation, but imagine having a customer wait 30 minutes, 40 minutes while someone is combing through a whole lot of documents to actually get them a simple answer. And in this case now, you can see that there is a proper use case. If we define it properly, we'll actually get to be able to see, okay, cool, this might make an impact within the organization. It might reduce the time that my agents are spending on calls. maybe they can take more calls, they can answer more emails, they can be more effective. Maybe we can put them through some training, which would be using better, and enhancing the talent or retaining your talent. So there's a whole lot of ways that you can see an ROI impact immediately in that use case. Now you can look at, okay, so now you define the use case. How do you, kind of test this, not in a 2-year sprint or 3-year sprint for project development cycle, but how do you test it quite quickly? In this way, Azure OpenAI, as well as many other, OpenAI sources, they allow you to actually pick a flagship model. So let's say, for example, in this case, because it's mainly text that I'll be combing through, I might want to do chat completion using a ChatGPT 4 model. And I'm going to show you how you deploy that in Azure AI Studio and how you can actually upload a document very soon. And we'll do the first cycle of prototyping in this demo, okay? Then you're obviously establishing the feasibility. So when I'm prompting the AI bot, is it giving me accurate information? Is it hallucinating in the data science world? What we mean by that is that if you're prompting it, is it making up stuff? Is it actually giving me a whole scenario, a whole different world compared to what I'm actually asking? Then you go ahead and you obviously build your prototype. Once you build your prototype, I mean, you can do a couple of techniques to modify it, train it, and optimize it a bit more. And then you're obviously going to move it into a real world scenario where you roll it out almost in a POC phase, departmental, or it's business unit case, or maybe it's a subset of your customers. And then you actually start seeing this AI bot giving you value within your organization. I'm not going to go into the rags and the fine tuning. I'm actually going to show you how that's done a little later, so you can actually see how this is done in a real world example. And hopefully, if the demo gods permit, we don't have any hiccups when we're doing the demos. So let's go to maybe sort of some of the guiding questions that you should ask when you want to choose your right model, right? A typical example, like I gave you now, is the contact center that wants to become more efficient. Now, this could be in many other different scenarios. Let's say, for example, you have a team of ExCo members that would like to get more data-driven insights from the data that you have on your databases or all the data that's coming through from customer feedback, etc. So there's always different questions that you can ask yourself. So firstly, we'd start with the 4 main pillars, right? Which is, what task are you trying to accomplish, right? And then based on that, is it going to be natural language? So are you doing natural language processing? Is it text mainly that you're going to be processing? And you have a whole lot of considered models that you can use. Is it maybe audio, or is it computer vision? Or maybe it's a subset of having a model being able to do a variety of different accomplishments, which is natural language, audio, maybe computer vision. Maybe it's able to even read screenshots like OpenAI's ChatGPT 4.0. And the next one is, look, how, what is the high precision mark in terms of your specialist domain? And when I say that is, let's say, for example, you're working in a marketing industry where you're allowed to be a little bit more creative within the confines of your customer's corporate identity and so forth, but you can train the bot to be within those guardrails. Whereas if you're now in some way where you are legally compliant with certain data laws, as an example, then you have to be really precise with your model and your algorithm and how you're training it. So that's what that actually means, is that you really have to look at, when you're doing your use case, how important is it in your domain-specific area for you to be precise in terms of the feedback that the bot is giving or the agent is giving, or or even the search is giving, returning back, or is it okay for me to be a little bit more creative? And there's some settings and some tweaks that we can do in Azure and the AI Studio that I'll be able to show you that you can accomplish both those tasks with. Then in terms of your requirements or inference speed, so how fast do you want this to respond? Where else you would find in some cases the website has bots embedded in them currently, and the bot chat process is a bit lengthy. So you ask it a question and it waits a little bit, and then it starts to give you a response. So it really depends on how you want that speed to be set up, and that's also something that can be configured. And then the last question is, what's your budget? Okay. So if you're looking for something free, you can go open source, but there's some huge risks attached to that from a security perspective, right? When you go open source, you really need to know that you need to have someone that you put down as headcount organization. They need to be skilled. They need to know how data science algorithms work, all of these things to be able to set up the infrastructure before you go and use something open source, right? And remember, there's dangers using or exposing your IP to the public internet models that are running like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. as well. So it is really something that you got to consider. And I'll recap this one. It's what you want to accomplish. I mean, how precise you want to be within your domain, and then what's your speed that you want this particular bot, and we'll use a bot as an example, and then what's your budget. I'll just pause there for a moment and just check if there's any questions or any thoughts from the audience so far. Everyone's still good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Azure AI and what it actually offers from a model selection. Okay, so you get both breeds of a LLM and also a small language model as well. And many people only have heard of or know of a large language model. So let me just define what a small language model means. A small language model means that it's if you want to call it, it's a small brother of a GPT-4, etc. It gives you the ability to deploy something within your organization where you don't need the huge amounts of training and fine-tuning behind the foundation model. And it has different use cases that we see in industry at the moment. We see a lot of the small language models being deployed from a manufacturing perspective or from a retail perspective because your data is more structured. You have a little bit more cohesiveness within your data and your glossaries on your database. So it's very easy for you to take that database, feed it into a small language model, create a recommendation bot on your website, and you can do something very simple like, if somebody bought this, we also recommend that you buy these things because that's the current purchase history. So it's kind of like a Netflix recommendation model that you would use, something like that. And then obviously you have the flagships like the GPT-4s, the Mistral languages, the Llama 4s, some of them that you might not have heard of or played of, your Command R pluses, and these are statistical models that can help you with your coding, etc. as well. Okay, then in terms of tasks and tools, like when you're looking at something that can handle more than just a text base, you can use the GPT-4s, the Phi 3 versions, image generations like DALL-E, Leonardo, or DaVinci, and you also have embedded models as well, like Ada, that can really help you with vectorization. And vectorization means how you're actually searching in terms of your keyword search. Just like when you go on Google and you type in, I'm looking for a fancy sports car, Google's algorithm picks that up, and then they give you a search return based on that. So that's Ada as well. And then you obviously got your regional and your domain specific ones. So you can deploy a model that's really specific to translating Arabic. You can look at something around time series and forecasting for the financial people, and really, look at your balance sheets and your profit and loss analysis. And then you have hundreds of open models from Hugging Face, which is a really it's a really user-friendly open source library for you to test, play around, go ahead and try out some OpenAI models, GPT models, NVIDIA models, etc. as well. Okay, and really in this instance, what I want to actually show you is that what I'm showing you now is all available in the safety and the guardrails around your Azure subscriptions when you create an Azure subscription. If you don't have one, then obviously that's something you would go look into when you're trying to do some AI prototyping. Okay, and you've probably seen some of these logos around, like Databricks, Meta AI, OpenAI, Hugging Face, NVIDIA, G42, Snowflake, and these are really some of the flagship ones that I put down for us. Okay, so let's maybe talk about the model catalog a little bit more, and the starting point that you can use to explore the latest and the greatest fine tunes, right? So some of the things that we look at, especially when we're doing an AI consultative session with a customer, is we'll look at a discovery session to understand what your task is within your domain. And and like Brian said at the beginning, we're not talking about something that's in a box coming in and deploying it in your environment, right? It's actually a custom AI application And I'm saying application because it can cover a vast, array of different use cases. One was I gave you the customer services or customer desk scenario, which is a chatbot or a search engine that can help and make it speedy, right? The other one could be document intelligence. You're feeding in a whole lot of your back offices, feeding in documents, and now you got to take that documents and translate it into workable data and insights-driven data. And then, there's many other use cases that we would cover. So obviously, we'd start with a discovery, looking at the best model that fits your scenario, and try and narrow that down so that we actually pick one or two models and we create a prototype around it. Then we look at fine-tuning the model so that it meets specific needs. It overcomes some challenges around large-scale model training, which means that, what is the data protection around it? What's the security around it? We also then create an evaluation and deploy method where we test and we measure how accurate a model is. And I'm going to show you how we do that. Then we look at, how do we deploy it in operations, in your applications, or create a subset, a closed net application that actually helps us do this. Okay, so from a model catalog, which is what I've been speaking about a lot now, and you must be wondering, what is this thing that's model catalog? So when you first open up your Azure or create an Azure OpenAI subscription, one of the things you get exposed to is a model catalog, and it allows you to do flexible deployments. Okay, so in this flexible deployments, we spoke about two categories just now where I showed the previous models. You have the managed compute, where Azure manages the virtual machine, the containerization, the machine learning modules, and everything that sits within that. And then you have the serverless APIs, which you can call, such as OpenAI, and they pre-built models and APIs that you can just call, and you pay per token for using that. And there's about 30 plus of them. From a managed compute side, there's hundreds of these open models that are available, and you pay per GPU from a billing perspective. So whenever someone actually asks me, what am I going to look like from a cost perspective, I'll really say, how do you want it? Do you want real fine-tuned training and you want to have full control? Then we're going to go manage compute because you have more control of everything. But if you have an application, you've developed the application is running, and now you just want to apply AI on top of it to give some intelligence or to create some efficiencies within it, then the easier way to actually do is pay per token, and you can actually get that via your CSP partner, Torito, and you can spin up that and you can call that API within your application. So there'll be a function that one of your developers or your developer team embeds in your application, and you can call the API using that. Okay, then in terms of the APIs and how they actually work, you can use it via Azure AI Studio and Prompt Flow, which we're going to look at today. You can use popular tools like LangChain and semantic kernels, or you can use some of the SDK models from ChatGPT, Mistral, where you can download the SDKs, deploy it within your package in Visual Studio, and you can actually build freely locally on your machine. Okay, model benchmarking, we spoke about this a few slides ago. And model benchmarking is where we're actually going to look at how accurate is your model. And what happens from a data science perspective is we take the data that you have and we separate it into two groups. We call the first group a training data set, and the second data set is obviously your live production data set that we will do some tests and simulations on. From a training data set perspective, Azure OpenAI gives you really full control on how you feed that data and how you train that data. And also the percentage split between both of those categories that I mentioned is really in your control. So if you want a 50-50 split or a 70-30 split or a 30-70 split, it's really up to you. And it allows you to then run a benchmarking calculation, which is an algorithm on top of your model that you've developed or your chatbot that you've developed. And it allows you then to say, how accurate is this response that I'm receiving from my bot? So if I asked it, what is OpenAI services in Azure? And it responded ABCD versus what it's supposed to respond, ChatGPT-4 model, 3.5, Turbo, etc., then I know that I can compare this using a statistical model, either a regression model or a nearest neighbor model, which is an algorithm term, that just to actually show how we compare how accurate the model is, okay? So you have full control and you have these reports and benchmarking tools in the Azure OpenAI Studio that will allow you to actually measure how your bot is responding to audiences. Not only when you're developing it, but also when you live in production, you can go into the studio, into the monitoring section, and you're able to actually look at that. Okay, and then in terms of the API, there's a lot more here. You can see some of the screenshots that I'm sharing is just in terms of the common API models and inference that you can do, comprehensive AI tool chains and integrations across platforms like GitHub, VS Code, your LangChain, like I mentioned, semantic kernel. You can convert it into a Python code, a node application, and even deploy it into a web application, which is scalable and also secure as well. Okay, I'll just check again if there's any questions. Melissa, anything from the audience in the chat?
No, nothing yet.
Okay. Okay, cool. I think we're still good on time. So I'll just finish up these 2 slides and then we'll move up into the demo. So a lot happens when we speak about how do you develop these applications, how do you get more from the models and the AI bots. So what I'm actually showing you here is that GitHub is currently an open repository that many companies use, and the developer teams use these for saving their code, deploying their code, creating application, even collaborating in your development teams, whether it's one person or whether it's a few people that are developing and creating this. What Azure has actually done is they've created a partnership between GitHub and Azure AI Studio, which means that your teams would be able to, in GitHub, deploy the OpenAI solutions, and they can actually code and develop these applications securely within your governed GitHub accounts. So this is really what the slide is actually talking about. Okay, I've got a video just to show you model catalog again, then we'll continue from there. Just let me know.
In a world powered by AI, choosing the right AI model is key to customizing your intelligent AI applications for specific business use cases. Azure AI Studio offers developers an expansive model catalog, enabling them to prototype, optimize, and operationalize intelligent AI applications seamlessly. Strategic partnerships with leading model providers ensure that developers have immediate access to the newest and most advanced models, allowing them to build, test, and deploy their AI solutions. Plus, developers now have the flexibility to select the most suitable model based on cost, latency, and precision, ensuring their AI applications are optimized for real-world performance. The model catalog includes cutting-edge foundational models alongside open source and small language models, domain-specific models, and multimodal models. Flexible deployment options in Azure AI mean you start with what you need and scale as you grow. Choose models available as serverless APIs for agility or provisioned throughput for predictable performance. When you're ready for full-scale production, the robust Azure AI Studio platform helps to ensure your deployment is secure, scalable, and compliant, safeguarding your data and maximizing operational efficiency. Get started today with Azure AI Studio Model Catalog. Visit aka.ms/Azure AI Model Catalog to learn more.
Cool. So
in a world powered by...
That video kind of summarized a little bit of what we've spoken about and actually took you through the different phases when we're creating real-world applications from an AI perspective. So I just want to also just touch on in terms of the data security and compliance side of things really quickly. So one of the things that you would notice is that when it comes to exposing your data to all of these large language models or small language models, or even using open source models to create AI or intelligence within your applications, the 3 most common questions that we all ask ourselves, and hopefully we're asking that question, is data privacy, security, compliance, and are we using AI responsible, and are we applying content safety, right? So from a data privacy perspective, what I'd like to share is that with Azure and using Azure OpenAI services or Azure AI Studio, you need to really bear in mind that your data is your data. So the large language models are not going to be trained using your data. Your data is secure within your tenant and your security settings, and Microsoft or any of their third parties have a customer agreement to say that they will not touch your data or train the models based on your data. Okay. So that then goes into the security and compliance side of things. So when you're obviously uploading your data or connecting your databases, there's encryption for your databases, there's encryption for your data. And even when we're going to show you some of the botnets and the bot frameworks now, you would see that there would be security tokens and security keys, which is based on the RSM algorithms. And this is complete encryption end to end for you. And then the other one that we always get is in terms of responsible AI. So it's really fast and easy for you to create an AI bot using Azure AI Studio, but you also need to apply some responsibility over it in terms of your legality, in terms of what your corporate governance might be, what your policies might be in terms of your company. Let's say, for example, you create something on your website around your return policy. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be giving information to the customer that it's real, and it needs to be something that's actually tangible, which is in your policies, which is a written contract, stuff like that. So really important here, these three topics or these three questions, you need to actually, make sure that these requirements are met from an enterprise perspective when you're creating it. So unpack a little bit more in terms of the data privacy. We spoke about the two different types of models that you get, which is the managed compute. And you can see here, I just give you a typical architecture diagram of how it will look like. You have your user subscription, you have your inference endpoint, your fine tuning and evaluation. You can see you've got your your GPUs. Then you've got your model catalog, which is hosting. And then you've got your Azure machine learning service. And that's kind of wrapped around your firewall, your networking security, your security groups, everything within the Azure environment. So that allows that, that your prompts remain your prompts, and completions are also not shared with the model providers. What does that actually mean? So that means when you're actually creating a prompt flow or you're training your algorithms based on your data, it's yours. No one's going to take that, or NVIDIA is not going to take that data. Meta's not taking that data. And even when the bot returns a completion, which is an output result from the chat that you've asked it, or the prompt you've asked it, it's not going to be shared with anyone outside that tenant. That lives in that tenant and it dies in the tenant. So should you decide to can the project, it will die there. Should you decide to expand the project or go or push it further, it's going to obviously be able to be exposed to the people or the organization that you want to train to. The same thing applies to the serverless APIs. And you can see there's just one additional layer that gets put in there, the model provider, the Azure Marketplace SaaS offers, and then your billing and your cost management. Because remember, we explained the both. The other one is where you're managing everything from an infrastructure perspective. So you'll get one bill for all your infrastructure, your resources, etc. from there. And then from the serverless side of things, when you're calling the API, you're doing it per token, right? Then in terms of vulnerability scanning and hidden layer model scanning, so what does it actually mean? Azure and all of its OpenAI tools and models that are being deployed or shared within the Azure AI Studio is automatically scanned for any malicious code, for any malicious behavior, for any injection of SQL injections or anything like that that can be tampering or cause corruption on the models itself. So when you're using the models from Azure AI Studio, it comes with the guarantee from Microsoft that they actually do embedded malware and backdoor scanning. They will do scanning from common vulnerabilities and exposures across the Microsoft network and third-party security providers as well. They'll also look at detecting any tampering and corruptions across the coding layer and the model layer as well for you. Okay, and I find that that's really important because obviously you are using a third party, which is not someone that's sitting in your organization. You're using a model or using an organization like Microsoft as an example, and you obviously want to make sure that what you're doing there has trust and it has security and it has the different types of protection for you as a customer. Then in terms of the security and the compliance layer, you can see that each of these layers have their own sort of way that we can route traffic inbound and outbound through virtual networks. You can also apply security groups within each environment, each compute environment, each serverless cluster, or each managed service. Even in Azure OpenAI, when I show you the demo just now, you're going to see you're going to be able to limit who has access to it within your organization. So really, security and compliance is the forefront of all of these developments and this model catalog and infrastructure. Okay. I'm just showing you a screenshot here of an earlier deployment where you can see just an example here. If you look in the center, you can actually see display name, and you can say it's allowed register name, and you can actually specify this. And then under display name, you can see restricted model, and it has a specific ID here, right? What this actually means is that within your code and within this sort of library and repository here, you can define policies to restrict and to control. You can have an allow list or deny list. If you're from the IT department, you know this really well. If you're from the business side of things, simply meaning what we're saying actually is that, you know, we can allow certain types of use cases, we can deny certain types of use cases, not just from a permitted asking and answering a question from a bot side, but also in terms of who has access to it and who doesn't have access to it as well. Okay. And then let's talk about, and pause for a moment after we've gone through data security and compliance, right? We'll just touch a little bit about generative AI, and then I'm going to switch into the demo, which is the last slide now. So generative AI is currently the greatest force multiplier that we've seen, almost a new revolution in the way that we're working, in changing in a lot that we're doing. And we see typically 4 main use cases that Gen AI is being used for. New automation efficiencies, and I'll mention some of it now, like the customer services side of things. But also you might have systems that are speaking to each other, that are doing mundane tasks, like maybe they're dropping files, uploading files into databases. Maybe there's some stored procedures that are running in your databases, which are like jobs that are doing copying and tasks, deleting. Maybe there's information that's been transferred from one department to another department, or maybe it's manual capturing of forms and then it's being uploaded by someone or captured by someone from a data capture perspective. All of these tasks, you can use generative AI using object detection, speech to text, text to text models in Azure AI Studio that can actually automate all of that for you. New customer engagements, such as onboarding and offboarding customers. You can actually do that using Gen AI and actually create an intelligent bot system to do that for you and create a full workflow to actually do that. And remember, the experience that the customer will actually receive at that end is that they have a full warm experience from you, because it's a complete feedback loop. It's you're touching them, you're giving them the right information at different points within their journey, so they feel and touch is feeling really good about the experience that they would get from you. Then in terms of new personal productivity, we've seen the wave of the Copilot coming in, the Copilot Studio, where you can create low-code Copilot applications and embed them in your systems. And then lastly is new products and services. So you could take generative AI, add it onto intelligent applications within your organization, and actually give you competitive advantage as well. Okay, so I'm going to quickly switch to the demo. I just want to see and test that everybody can still see my screen. All good, Brian, Melissa?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So first, I'd actually like to take us into the Azure resource group. So if you haven't seen the backend of Azure before, I'm simply going into my Azure subscription. And in my Azure subscription, I've created a resource group here, which is called resource group Inayeth.governor. And what I've done is I've created a few resources in there already to save us some time. So what I have created already for us is an AI hub, an AI project, some services that are running in the backend of Azure, and I'm going to show you now. Then the OpenAI service, which is an actual service in Azure that you can deploy as standalone. And then a key vault. And then I mentioned, remember the security, the compliance part of it. This is how Azure is doing it. They lock all of your keys, tokens, security stuff in a key vault, and it's protected from anyone actually coming into that. It has DDoS protection and a whole lot of other stuff. Then as a backup, I've created a recovery service vault on top of all of these services that I have. And this is the best practice that I follow when I'm doing AI and deploying AI, because something might happen when I'm coding something, or something might happen when I'm developing something. So I have a snapshot and I can quickly recover from that. And then the last services that I've created is an actual storage account. And the storage account helps me drop files into the cloud, just like OneDrive. And you can connect directly to OneDrive or SharePoint, but I just prefer using a storage account because I know my data is more secure here, and I'm not looking for data all over the SharePoint site or looking all over the data for in my OneDrive. I know it's a very precise way that I'm training, and I'm isolating where the data lives. Okay, from there, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take you into the chat playground, which is the Azure AI Studio. And like I mentioned at the beginning, you have a whole industry full bouquet of different models that you can look at. So here I'm just going to explain to you here, this is prompt samples, which is a sample bouquet that you get that you can quickly click on this and it will create a quick AI bot for you based on a pre-built template. So let's say an example, I would like to create a user questionnaire. I can click on this and it'll quickly go and create it. And remember, it's trained on foundational models still. It hasn't been trained on your data or anything yet. It just created the template for me, and it created almost like the flow of how this bot would do. Similarly, with a travel assistant or property listing video, insurance report, and there's a whole bunch of them that you can actually play with here that gives you the template. And then on top of the template, I'm going to show you how you add your own data to it as well. After you look at prompt catalog, you also have AI services, and I covered some of them in some of the slides. So you have speech analytics, where you can translate audio and video recordings, and you can generate outputs which are intelligent. So like almost like summaries. And we all seen this in the transcript on Teams. So when you use Teams and you do a recording, you get a transcript section, and it's actually using this speech analytics tool in Azure AI Studio to actually give us a summary of what's happening in the meeting, etc. Then you can do document field extraction. So I mentioned this one where, let's say, for example, you have a whole lot of documents, you take a screenshot of that document and you can upload it into some database or something like that. And then you can do summaries really quickly with generative AI and using the API calls and prompt shielding for generative AI. And that's a topic that we can go on or we can speak about another time. And as you can see, if you break down or go further down into this, you can see that it goes into speech, language and translation, vision and documentation, your content safety. So looking at detecting harmful, offensive, inappropriate, use of fields or content or images, etc. And you can use that to actually safeguard or guardrail your AI from people uploading, funny images or uploading spam into your bot, and that being circulated and customers might see it or whatever it may be. And then from this, what we're going to do is we just click on model catalog, so I can show you how model catalog looks like. So you can see anytime there's a new model that's announced, OpenAI will actually drop it. Azure will drop it on the top here for you. You can see all of the new models that get deployed, so Llama, etc. And then you have the ability to filter the content depending on the provider that you want to look at. So we're going to look at, for example, OpenAI just now. Okay, and you can see here relatively all the models that OpenAI has deployed that we know about is here. So O1, it's in preview, which is a current model. You can see you've got GPT-4 real-time preview. You've got Whisper. If I scroll down further, you're going to see Text Embedded 3. You're going to see some text TTS, DALL-E for text to image. So you can prompt the bot with text and it creates images for you. Really nice in the graphics and the content development, and even the marketing teams love that one. And then there's a whole lot that we can go through, right? So let me just show you, which is, I usually show this to many customers. This is a quick hip shot fire at creating a quick bot, right? So in the playground section, and you can see there's various sections here. So this is the get start section that we were in. You have got the playground section, which is the chat, the assistance, real-time audio, image, and completion. Then you've got your fine tuning that I've spoken quite a bit about, and then your shared resources in this group. So what happens is you can see that this is one complete studio that you log in a piece of software that has all of these different tool functionalities that you can use in this. So you don't have to leave this environment to do any of the stuff that I've mentioned. You actually do it all here. So let me quickly go into my Azure services. And what I want to show you is I'm now in the Azure container, which is a blob storage, just like OneDrive, as I mentioned. And I'm going to go upload a quick document here. Okay, and you can see as I'm doing this, it's actually navigating me to my Windows, my documents. I'm just going to quickly use as an example this piece of document here. Okay. And got it there. And now I'm going to click this little button that says overwrite if the file already exists. And I advise when you're doing this, you check that box because sometimes you lose track of all of the information that you do upload sometimes. I'm going to click upload. You can see in a few seconds, it actually uploaded the document into that. And you can see it's a different document than the one that I had there. Okay, so now my document is uploaded. I can go to the chat playground. In the chat playground, you get a few things that look like this, and obviously a survey pops up. So you can look at your setup section here, which helps you deploy new models. Now, the first thing that you would do when you come into this environment, and I've done it so that we can save some time in the demo, is that you actually create a new deployment. And the two types of models that we did speak about is a base model and a fine-tuned model. So if we go in and click a base model, as an example here, you can see I can go in and I can do ChatGPT 3.5, and I can go, it gives you a little bit of history of what it does, and I can go confirm. Now I can give it a name. I'm just going to put a 1 there at the end. It gives you a pricing or deployment type. So is it a standard? Is it a global bench? Is it a provisionally managed? And remember those models, we looked at them in the presentation. So depending on which model you choose, the billing is different and also how you manage it is different. So I'm just going to choose standard and let Azure worry about managing it for me. And then I'm going to go deploy at the bottom. And you can see the resource location here is set to US. The reason why is some of the models are not available in South Africa yet, but they are in a roadmap for them coming down. But quite a lot of the models that we use on a regular basis, like the GPT-4s, all of those, they are already available in the South African data center. So in terms of data sovereignty and making sure your data lives in country, that's taken care of from the big ones. But maybe there might be something really specific from your use case that you would need. Then that we can obviously, we'll look at the roadmap and see how long that actually takes, or we find an alternative model and use that model, which would actually do the job for us. Okay, so now you can see I've deployed the model. If I click the drop down here, you can see the model that I've just deployed now, 3.5 is here, Turbo. And then I'm going to just leave it on 4.0. Now, what this actually does is this section here is where you're giving the model some context and you're giving it some instructions, okay? So I'm just going to say here, you are an AI assistant that helps people find information about Azure OpenAI services, okay? Now, one thing to note here is that this instruction that you're giving the bot here, and this is a simple chat bot, and we're going to deploy it really quickly. You'll see how we deploy it. This instruction is we really giving the bot a bit more fine tuning on what your purpose is in life. So who are you and what your purpose is in life? We go save. It's going to bring up this message here. Really what this message is saying is that you've done some change to the chatbot. Are you okay to save that? We're just going to go continue. Then we can go in and add our data. So we can add data source, which is the button that I selected there. We're going to choose blob storage. You can see it automatically chooses my subscription in Azure. I can choose the AI blob 101, which I showed earlier. I can choose the exact service that I want to use here. Okay. And then what it's going to say is that I don't have an Azure AI service, search service. It's okay. We can create one quickly. Okay. For the purposes of this demo, I've already, already added it in there for you. That's just showing you, when you're adding your steps, you can choose how you want your data sources to be set. Then one more thing I want to show you is, remember I mentioned that you can choose how you configure the bot. So you can have your past messages saved, how many responses you want the bot to actually reply back on, or have a maximum response rate. So maybe a certain number of responses, 5, and then you transfer to someone which is a human, as an example, if the bot is customer facing. In terms of temperature, this is actually talking about how accurate, how not accurate you want this. Top P is a statistical model calculation in terms of the accuracy that we're going to see from the bot and itself. And what we're going to do is really do a hip shot, and I'm going to say, tell me about Azure OpenAI services. Okay, and you can see in a couple of seconds, it gives me a full definition explaining and drawing inference from my documents as well to say OpenAI services, cloud platform, etc., key features, access, scalability, integration into Azure environment, security compliance, all of the things that I just mentioned now, use cases in terms of you can use it in customer support, content creation, code assist, data analysis, and even creative application. Everybody, it was a delight presenting and taking you through this demo today, and allowing me to speak and show you some of these information and some of the way that AI is being deployed in real world scenarios. I'll hand over back to Brian, because that's my time for today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Inayeth. Really appreciate it. So we do have about 5 minutes left before we're going to kick off the brandy tasting. So we're going to open up to a Q&A. You're welcome to either just raise your virtual hand and we'll give you the mic and you can ask your question. Otherwise, if you'd prefer to just drop it in the meeting chat, and we'll keep an eye on that as well and give whatever answers we can. I think whilst everyone is either accessing their notes or thinking about the question that they want to ask, I know we did get 2 or 3 questions that came through during the invitation. So Mel, do you want to just drop one of those in?
Sure. Do you want me to read it out? Or...
Yeah, that's fine. I think just read out.
Okay, cool. How customizable are Azure AI tools for our specific industry needs, and can we use them across different database types like SQL and NoSQL?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for that, Mel. I think from a database perspective or from a source perspective, Azure is actually capable of handling many different databases types. One of the things that I would advise is when you're connecting your database up is just in terms of what tables you do want to train your bot off, because obviously your database has multiple tables. We have to be careful on how much of data you do expose the bot, because depending on how much you expose, you're going to obviously incur different types of costing around how the model and the tokens are used.
Right.
I have another one, which I do think you did answer quite nicely, but I'll just ask it anyway. What are the built-in security and compliance features for data handled within Azure AI, especially for privacy-focused industries? Yeah,
I think we can zoom in terms of the privacy and the data sovereignty part of it. Azure has a whole bunch of data and security settings and configurations that we can do. One is the network security, the firewalls that get wrapped around the resources. Also your identity management. So your Entra ID is what you will log into the environment and be able to train, upload, and manage your data. But on top of that, it also has content safety and filterization in terms of making sure that your data is filtered and the response is not vulgar or rude or anything like that. You can actually train the bot to be polite, kind, and you can even manage the tone in which it actually responds as well. So one is, how is it managing your data side of things? And then also, how is it actually responding from a responsible AI side of it as well?
And I think that that's probably one of the big changes that's happening at the moment, in particular with Microsoft's suite of AI solutions, as well as many others, is that there's a lot of businesses that are concerned around not just the data that it's processing, but how it's responding. And that much lower barrier to entry of it managing content and, keeping an eye out for inappropriate language or inappropriate content. Those kind of capabilities are now built into the platform, as you saw in the presentation as well. So it isn't businesses, requirement to actually come up with those capabilities and building those capabilities into the AI. You can now simply select those options, and it enables that. And I think that gives businesses a lot more freedom to be able to create the bots that they want to create and play with the content as they want to as well.
Most definitely, Brian, 100%. Full control on how you actually do this, and full control in even, let's say, for example, you're creating the bot that actually wants, so instead of it responding in text, you can get the bot to actually respond in natural language like a person and voice. So you can actually determine what type of voice you want it to respond and how should it be kind, should it be respectful, should it be business professional, and you can set that up in the settings and configuration on the playground that we just saw now.
Excellent. We do have a question coming in from Rowan. He said, are the tokens consumed based on API calls? And he also wanted to know about the training costs. We'll arrange the training costs to be sent through to you through your account manager, Rowan. And we'll obviously distribute that to the group in general. But are the tokens consumed based on API calls?
Excellent question, Rowan. So if you do choose the API method of it and not the managed side of it, it is consumed based on API calls, but you can always run customization with your function calls that will lock down the number of times someone can repeat the same question or same response. You can also circulate the bot's answers on a variety of your data responses, so you use up less tokens when the bot is actually responding as well.
Great. Thanks so much. And then I think the last question over here, unless anyone else has got anything else, please do drop it into the chat. How quickly can we expect an ROI after implementing, which I suppose is a little bit subjective, but maybe you can give us some insight on the experience that you've had from customers on that.
Definitely, Brian. I think let me use a typical scenario, right? We had an insurance customer and one of our partners deploying OpenAI services. And they deployed it just on their claims functionality and their claims department, right? And what they've seen within a time span of 2 months, they've seen a 35% reduction in fraudulent claims from their customers, and they've seen a 35% improvement in the claims process from end to end. So their satisfaction scores went up from a net promoter score for their customers, and they also improved that process in terms of claiming and making sure that no fraudulent claims are coming through. So they're dealing with proper claims, and they've improved their customer experience as well. So that's one example. We can look at one where it's a bit of a twofold way. It's a company that does online gaming, and they deployed a customer-centric agent that can handle first-line queries when someone's stuck when they're doing their gaming and stuff like that online. They've seen an immediate return on investment because it doesn't go to a call center to wait for long queues and stuff like that. The customer handles that queries handled immediately upfront, and they've seen a huge uptake in terms of their customers returning and doing return games with them online.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think, in general, we've certainly found that in terms of a very quick, not necessarily ROI, but certainly a very quick improvement on services that are running on AI. Pattern recognition it's almost guaranteed. Like if you throw this stuff, anything to do with looking for a pattern, looking for a change in terms of, fraudulent transactions or inaccurate data or anything like that, it is unbelievably powerful at that. And that's just kind of a starting block for it. But yeah, we've had some great successes, which we're very happy to share with you guys as well. I think we are out of time. And I thank you once again for the preso and taking us through all of that info. Really appreciate it. We do have Sean Gunn, who is joining us. I think he's already joined the chat. Is he around? Sean, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Brilliant.
Waiting patiently, learning.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, you must know quite a bit about a lot of the stuff that we present on nowadays.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I should pivot. Yeah.
Exactly. So we are going to kick off the next part of the event, which is going to be the brandy tasting. So I will hand over to Sean from Whiskey Rebellion, and get your packs ready and enjoy it, guys. We will chat to you a little bit later.
Thanks so much, Brian, and thanks again, Torito, for having me. It's always fun to sort of end these sessions with a bit of alcohol, but this is also a bit of education. And I'm so stoked that we are doing brandy, because we hardly ever get to do brandy / cognac. And it's surprising to me because South Africa is we've got such a huge brandy culture here, but the types of tastings that we do generally center around things like whiskey and gin and tequila. And brandy is kind of seen as this throwaway spirit, whereas that's really not the case. And I hope tonight you guys will see that brandy as a spirit itself can be treated with the same amount of respect that we tend to treat things like whiskey and fine tequilas and that kind of thing. So just to kick off, before I get going, hopefully you've got your box. Looks like this. You're going to open it up. As I do my introduction, I want you to make sure you do your setup. And if you haven't already, you'll find that there's a little instruction card on the inside that's got all the stuff that you need to know to set up. The only thing that you're going to require that's outside of your box is maybe just a little bit of water. It doesn't have to be bottled water, anything can be tap water, but it's something for you to put your little pipette into, just a glass of water or a jug or something like that. And then you've got your tasting mat, which I'm just going to share over here, which looks like this. And you can see that there's little circles, numbers. What I want you to do, please, is if you can take these little vials that you've got in your box and pour them into the glassware that you received in your box, 1 to 6, pre-pour them all if you can, and then place those glasses numbers corresponding to the mat. Okay, simple as that. I'm going to talk about the chocolates and the fudge in the box just now once you've all set up your tasting, but I'll do a little bit of an introduction as I'm waiting for you all to set up. So, yeah, I'm Sean Guns. I am sitting in the Wildabout Whiskey main bar in Dahlstrom. This is where our company is now based. And when I say our company, that is Whiskey Rebellion. That is who provided you these boxes. And we are specialists in spirits. We do all tastings across all spirit categories. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, it's kind of an educational based thing. So the idea of these online sessions is I'm going to teach you a little bit about brandy and cognac. And I really encourage you to switch your camera on if you want, interrupt me, unmute yourself, put your hand up, write in the chat, just any questions or anything that may pop into your mind. As we're going through this tasting, just let me know so that we can have some form of interaction. Otherwise, it tends to be a little bit lecture-y. But yeah, so tonight's tasting is called Songs of Fire and Wine, and this is looking at brandy and cognac. And when we're talking about brandy, we are talking about cognac as well. All cognac is brandy, but not all brandy is cognac, if that makes sense. Cognac is very much like tequila or champagne, which is region designated to France, south of France, cognac region. And it's built around a very particular set of rules and laws, and that's basically going to define what cognac is and what separates it from what we call brandy here in South Africa or elsewhere in the world. But you're going to learn about that tonight. Louis, I've just seen you've asked if you can have Coke with your brandy. If you've got Coke available, please go ahead. I'm not judging, but I'd encourage you to leave any mix out just for now. Because these that we are drinking tonight, we are not drinking Clippies. We are drinking some cool stuff, some interesting stuff, and sippable stuff. If you feel like mixing later, please go ahead. I know it's probably just joking, but the caliber of the drinks that we're drinking tonight is pretty high, and it makes me excited because we get to do some baseline comparisons between what's going on in South Africa and what's going on in France, and some of this may surprise you. as a broad definition, what brandy is, if you think about the word in Afrikaans, brandewyn, it's originated from the Dutch word brandewyn, which does not mean brandy wine, it means burnt wine. So the idea of burnt wine is really just taken from the idea of pot distilling. Just let my prop here. In the world of whiskey, we talk about this all the time, where pot distilling just requires us, for whiskey's sakes, putting beer, which is grain-based, into a pot still that looks like this, boiling it up and capturing the vapors out the other side. Now, those vapors in the whiskey world is called New Make Spirit. It's called White Dog in Europe. It's called Moonshine in the States. In terms of brandy, and when I'm talking about brandy, I'm including cognac in that, we are substituting beer for wine. We're putting wine in here. And what kind of wine we put in here kind of dictates the style of brandy that we're going to get out the other end. Same process applies. We boil it up. Out the other side comes a liquid called eau de vie. And eau de vie in Latin basically means water of life. And water of life is something that was put in